I set my bag down by the door and stood there for a moment. Just looking around the apartment. Our apartment. The one we'd picked together 3 years ago. Because she loved the exposed brick in the living room. And I loved that it was a 12-minute walk to the GO station. We'd compromised on a lot of things in this relationship. That's what you do. I picked my bag back up and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a text. I just left. Let me back up. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that I'm 34 years old, I work in project management for a construction firm in Mississauga, and up until 8 months ago, I thought I had a pretty decent life. Not perfect, nobody's life is perfect, but solid. Honest, built on things I'd actually worked for. I'd been with my girlfriend for 4 years. We'd lived together for 3. She was smart, funny, the kind of person who remembered your coffee order, and called her grandmother every Sunday. I thought I knew her. You think you know someone after 4 years. You think that's enough time. My best friend. I've known him since we were both 17, we played on the same hockey team. I was supposed to be his best man this past autumn. He'd been part of my life longer than almost anyone. I want you to sit with that for a second before I keep going. 4 years with her. 17 years with him. I found out about them on a Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic. There was no lipstick on a collar. No late night phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I was working from home and her phone kept buzzing on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower. The screen kept lighting up with his name and I thought. I genuinely thought. That something was wrong. That he'd been in an accident or there was some kind of emergency. Because why else would your girlfriend's phone be blowing up with messages from your best friend? I picked it up. Not to snoop. I want to be clear about that. I picked it up because I was worried. The first message I saw was enough. I put the phone face down on the counter. I walked to the living room. I sat on the couch. The one we'd argued over at the IKEA in Burlington because I wanted the gray, and she wanted the dark blue. And we'd ended up getting the gray. And I just sat there. She came out of the shower 20 minutes later. Towel around her shoulders, hair wet, humming something I didn't recognize. She stopped when she saw my face. What's wrong? She said. I looked at her. I thought about all the things I could say, all the questions I could ask. How long? Why did it mean anything? All of it. Instead I said I saw the messages. She didn't deny it. That's the thing I keep coming back to. She didn't even try. She sat down in the armchair across from me and she said, I was going to tell you. I said when? She didn't answer. I stood up. I went to the bedroom. I pulled out my hockey bag from the closet and I started packing. Clothes, laptop, chargers, the toiletry bag I kept ready for work trips. She appeared in the doorway. We should talk about this, she said. No, I said. You can't just leave. I zipped the bag, I picked it up, I said, I'll be in touch about my things. And then I walked out. Set the bag down in the hall for just a second. Looked around one more time. Picked it back up and left. I drove to a Marriott near the airport and got a room. I sat on the bed with my coat still on and I called my sister. She's the only person I told that night. She didn't say much. She just listened and then she said, come stay with me and Mark. I said I was okay. I don't know if I was, but I said it. The next morning I called into work, booked 3 days off, and started making a list. I am the kind of person who makes lists when things fall apart. It's not a trauma response or whatever, it's just how I think. You can't fix a feeling, but you can fix a situation. So I listed the situation. The lease was in both our names, but renews in January 4 months away. My car was mine alone. The joint bank account had about $800 in it from shared groceries and utilities. I transferred my half out that morning and closed my access to it. My name was on the Netflix and the Spotify. I canceled those. I had a storage unit in her building's garage with my bike, my hockey gear, and some boxes from when I moved in. I'd need to get those. The next thing I did was call my best friend. He picked up on the second ring. He started talking immediately. The way people do when they know they've been caught. And they want to control the narrative before you can say anything.
He said it just happened.
He said it didn't mean anything. He said he was sorry. He was so sorry. He didn't want to lose me over this. We'd been friends for 17 years. I let him finish. Then I said, I'm going to need you to not contact me again. Silence. That's it, he said. You're not even going to hear me out? I just did, I said. I hung up. I blocked his number. His Instagram, his Facebook, his Snapchat. I removed him from a group chat we'd had since 2014 with 4 other guys from the hockey team. That one stung a little. It felt like surgery, cutting something out that used to be healthy. Over the next few days, messages started coming in. First from her, asking if we could talk. I read the first one. I didn't respond. Then I blocked her number and turned off message requests on Instagram. Then from his fiancée, the woman he was supposed to marry in October. She was furious, not at me, at him. She'd found out too. She called me twice and I let it go to voicemail. I felt terrible about that, but I couldn't have that conversation. I couldn't be anyone's support system right now. Then from our mutual friends. This is the part nobody tells you about. The mutual friends. We had a whole social circle. The kind you build over years of cottage weekends and playoff watch parties. And someone's backyard birthday every August. Most of them knew us as a unit. And now that unit was being dissolved and everybody had to pick a side whether they wanted to or not. The first one to reach out was someone I'd considered a good friend for about 6 years. He sent a long message that started with "I don't want to get in the middle of this," and proceeded to spend 3 paragraphs getting very much in the middle of it. He said he thought I should hear my best friend out. He said sometimes things happen, and they don't mean what we think they mean. He said, and this is the one I keep coming back to, that he thought I was letting my pride get in the way of something that could be fixed. I read that message about 4 times. My pride. I didn't respond. I found a place to rent in about 10 days. A 1-bedroom in Oakville, month to month while I figured out next steps. Small, clean, close to a grocery store, and a trail I started running in the mornings, because I needed somewhere to put the anger that didn't involve punching anything. I arranged to pick up my things from the storage unit on a Wednesday afternoon, when I knew she'd be at work. I brought my sister and her husband. They loaded the car while I signed the paperwork to remove my name from the lease early. She'd agreed to take it over fully, which I was grateful for. At least that part was clean. I updated my address everywhere. Ontario health card, CRA, my bank, my work, subscriptions. Small boring tasks that each felt like snipping another thread. The mutual friends kept texting. My best friend sent a long email. I saw the subject line in my preview notifications. I deleted it without opening it. I know myself. I knew that if I read it I would want to respond, and I didn't trust what I'd say. Nothing good would come from it. His fiancée, ex-fiancée now, I learned, had called off the engagement. Someone in the group chat told me this, probably thinking it would make me feel better. It didn't really. I felt bad for her. She didn't deserve any of this either. My girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, apparently started telling people that I'd ghosted her, that I'd disappeared without any real conversation, without giving her a chance to explain. Without any closure. I thought about that a lot. The word closure. What that was supposed to mean in this situation. I wondered if what she actually meant was a chance to make me feel responsible for the outcome. To reframe what happened so that the end of our relationship became about my reaction, instead of her choice. I didn't reach out to correct the record. I just let it sit there. About 3 weeks after I left, I got a call from her mother. I want to tell you I let it go to voicemail. I didn't. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I was having a weak day. Maybe I was just curious what she could possibly have to say. She told me she was heartbroken by the situation. She said her daughter made a terrible mistake and she knew that. But she also said she thought I was being cruel by cutting off all contact. She said you and my daughter were together for 4 years. You don't just throw that away. I said she did. Brief pause. She needs to explain herself to you, her mother said. She at least deserves that chance. I said, with respect, she made her choices. I've made mine. You're being very cold about this. I thought about what to say. I said, I think I'm being very clear. She started to say something else and I said, I have to go. And I hung up, and then I went for a run, because I felt like I was going to vibrate out of my skin. A week later, a voicemail from her dad. He was gentler than her mom, which almost made it worse. He said he knew I was angry, and I had every right to be. But he said family, and here he used that word in reference to himself, as if 4 years made his daughter's family, my family. Shouldn't give up without a fight. I didn't call back. I saved the voicemail in a folder and I haven't listened to it again since. The one person who made this genuinely worse. And I want to be careful here. Because I know he meant well. Was a guy I'll call our group's peacemaker. He's the friend who always wants everyone to get along. Always wants to mediate. Always thinks that if you just get people in a room together, everything will work itself out. Good guy, genuinely. But he was absolutely relentless about this. He called me maybe 6 times over the course of 2 months. He texted probably more than that. He kept proposing some version of a sit down. Not to reconcile, he said. Not to pressure me into anything, just to clear the air. He said it wasn't healthy for anyone to have things left unsaid. The 4th or 5th time he called, I picked up and said, I need you to hear me when I say this. I don't have anything unsaid. I'm not avoiding a conversation. I'm done with the conversation. This isn't a pause. It's over. He got quiet. Then he said he just didn't want me to regret it. I said, I appreciate that. Please don't call about this again. He didn't, after that. And honestly, our friendship was never quite the same. That's a loss too, smaller than the others, but it's still a loss. When you draw a line like this, you find out pretty fast who in your life actually respects it. I'd like to tell you the first 3 months were manageable. They weren't, really. There's a particular kind of grief in losing multiple people at once. A partner, a best friend, and then the peripheral losses of the social world you built around both of them. I was running every morning, because if I didn't, I'd wake up and lie there and think too much. I was working long hours, not because I was a workaholic, but because having something to focus on felt like a controlled burn. Better than letting everything just smolders. My sister checked in regularly. My parents knew the basics. I'd told them what happened, kept it brief, didn't want to make it into a referendum on anyone. And my mom in particular was careful to just ask how I was doing, without pushing for more than I wanted to give. That meant a lot. I know not everyone has that. Around month 4, I started running into a few things I hadn't anticipated. My best friend's family had known my family for years. Not close, occasional barbecues. Our parents ran into each other at community things. But there was a history there. His mom reached out to my mom. Apparently she wanted the families to somehow mediate things between us. My mom told her gently that she didn't think that was something she could help with. She told me about it over the phone and I said, "Thank you." She said, "You're my kid. That's a no-brainer." I also ran into the mutual friend situation in a way I hadn't prepared for. There was a wedding in October. The kind of event we'd all been planning to attend as a group for months. I'd been looking forward to it. I'd RSVP'd yes. I sent the couple a note well in advance explaining that I wouldn't be able to come, that I was sorry, that I wished them nothing but good things. I didn't give a long explanation. Just a brief honest note. The groom called me. He said he understood. And he also said, "This is the thing about the groom. He's a direct guy. I respect that. I'm not going to pretend I don't wish you were here. But I get it. That was the right thing to say." I've thought about that call a lot. The wedding photos showed up on Instagram a few weeks later. My best friend was there, in several of them, smiling, looking fine. I felt something when I saw that. I'm not sure what to call it. Not jealousy, not regret, something more like confirmation. That's his life now with these people, and this is mine without them. And both of those things can be true at the same time. I unfollowed everyone from that world that I hadn't already removed. Not out of anger. Just hygiene. Somewhere around month 5, I had dinner with my sister and Mark. And I remember looking up from my food at one point and realizing I'd laughed twice during the meal without thinking about it. Genuine laughs, not the polite kind. That felt significant. I'd started sleeping through the night again. I'd joined a recreational hockey league, different rink from the old one, different guys, no history. And I was showing up every Tuesday, and it was good. Simple. Cold air, bad puns between shifts, post-game pints at the pub next door. I'd forgotten how much I'd let that part of my life atrophy. I'd also started being more deliberate about my finances, which sounds as unsexy but genuinely helped. I took the money I'd been putting into our shared expenses and started maxing out my TFSA contributions for the year. I met with a fee-only financial planner in Hamilton that my sister recommended. I made some decisions about where I was putting my energy over the next 5 years. Work, savings, things I actually wanted to build. It felt strange to say this. It felt like getting out of a fog I hadn't fully realized I was in. In month 6, my best friend sent a letter. An actual physical letter, handwritten, to my old address. My ex-girlfriend. I can only assume must have forwarded it somehow. Or he took a guess that I was still there. I wasn't. My landlord at the old building texted to say there was mail for me and I could pick it up. I drove over. I stood in the lobby with the envelope in my hand. I looked at his handwriting on the front. I'd recognize it anywhere. We'd been writing each other's names on birthday cards and Christmas envelopes since we were teenagers. And I stood there for a moment. Then I put the letter back in my pocket and drove home. I put it on my desk. I looked at it for 2 days. I thought about all the things it might say. I thought about whether reading it would give me anything I didn't already have. On the 3rd day I put it in the Recycling bin without opening it. I'm at peace with that decision. Maybe that surprises some people. But here's the thing. I didn't need his explanation. I didn't need to know the when and the how, and the particulars of what happened between them. None of that information was going to change anything that had already been changed. I already knew the only thing that mattered, which was who these people were. When I wasn't watching. That's enough. It's been 8 months now. I'm still in Oakville. I like it here more than I expected to. The lake path in the morning. The Saturday farmers market 2 blocks from my place. The easy drive out to Halton Hills when I want space and quiet. I've started cooking properly again, which I'd let slide. I make a decent roast chicken now. I know that's a small thing. I'm telling you anyway. Work is going well. I got moved onto a larger project this past spring, a mixed-use development in Brampton. And the role is stretching me in ways I hadn't experienced in a couple of years. I'm learning again. That feels important. My sister had a baby in March, a girl. I drove down to the hospital the night she was born and held her in the corridor outside the room while Mark went to get coffee and my sister slept. And I just stood there with this tiny person in my arms and felt, for the first time in a long time, completely certain about who I was and where I fit in the world. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. There are still moments. A song comes on and I remember singing it in the car with someone who doesn't exist in my life anymore. Or I catch a hockey game and instinctively reach for my phone to text someone I no longer talk to. Those moments still come. They probably will for a while. But I drove home from the hospital that night and I felt the difference between a life I was just moving through and a life I was actually choosing. And I realized those are not the same thing at all. People ask me, the few people who know the full story, whether I regret not fighting for things, for the relationship, for the friendship, for some version of resolution that involved me staying and working through it. I don't. Not because I'm cold. Not because I'm proud. Not because I think I'm better than anyone who made different choices in similar situations. But because fighting for something requires both people to want it to survive. And the moment I read those messages on her phone, I understood that I was the only one in these relationships who'd been treating them like they mattered. I'm not interested in negotiating my own worth to people who already made their assessment. Leaving wasn't running away. Leaving was the response. I took the phone call from her mother. I was polite. I said my piece. I listened, and then I went on with my life. I took the voicemail from her dad. I heard it once, I saved it, I moved on. I read the first text from my mutual friend asking me to hear my old best friend out. I understood what he was asking. I said no. I moved on. I held that letter in my hands for 3 days, and then I let it go. I'm not telling you this because I handled it perfectly. I didn't sleep right for months. I cried in my car. At a Tim Hortons drive-thru once, I said something petty about the situation to my cousin at Thanksgiving that I still feel slightly bad about. This was not a clean or easy thing to live through, but I made a decision the night I walked out of that apartment, and every smaller decision after that was just me honoring the first one. They got what they wanted from each other. I genuinely hope that works out for them. That's not sarcasm. I'm not built for carrying bitterness around. It's too heavy. What they didn't get to keep was me. And I've found out, over these past 8 months, that I'm worth keeping.